As for standardized testing, at least from my personal observation, I don't like obviously you want to take either the ACT or the SAT. I personally did not take the ACT. I only took the SAT, and my score was a 1590. Um, the score though really doesn't matter as long as you get above like 1560-ish. It becomes sort of, all the same. And the best way to prep for that, in my experience, and what I've heard from like all of my friends, is that just Khan Academy is a very good tool.
Yeah, I definitely had a lot of the same experiences as Hannah again. So I got the same score, 1590, and then I think my biggest piece of advice would just be to practice. I don't know of any shortcuts. I know a lot of people recommend stuff like the SAT Black Book, but personally, I just did a lot of practice, and that's what helped me improve my score mostly. So whether that's like Khan Academy, I know College Board has their own practice tests online, and there's other services as well, like free and paid ones. And for the ACT, I also didn't take it, but I heard that it's better if you're more into like science because they have a specific, uh, I think, category just for science, whereas the SAT just has the reading, writing, and math. But yeah.
And for this next section, this is where you can really begin to stand out because, again, like so many applicants to elite schools like Stanford have, like super high SATs and high GPAs. But the activities is where you really start to set yourself apart. So for clubs, more is not better is the most important piece of advice that I've learned in my own experience. Like you don't want to just join 10 clubs and then do nothing in any of them just because, you have like just for the name of having those clubs. Definitely try to show initiative and maybe create a club that doesn't already exist. But if you really can't do that at your school, then try to like take on leadership roles and be more deeply involved in like less clubs rather than be less involved in more clubs.
Yeah, once again, I mostly agree. And something that I forgot to say earlier is I know a lot of schools were test optional, but I think it just depends. You should look into the school that you're applying to. I think a lot of them are reverting back now, like with like Dartmouth and Yale, I think are requiring tests again. But it just depends on the school that you want to apply to. For clubs, I definitely agree. I think maybe in your freshman year and maybe even your sophomore year, you can try to join a lot of clubs and then just kind of see which ones you like. But I think going into your junior, senior year, you should try to stay in the clubs that you really enjoy and are passionate about, and then try to get either like a leadership position, like Hannah said, or like starting your own club based on the interests and the sponsors that you can find, the teacher sponsors.
And as for sports, if you're someone that's really into sports, if unless you're like varsity or like state champion or excelling in your own sport, it's not going to be like a huge plus on your application. So if you're really not into sports, don't worry about that at all. I played tennis for like 2 years in high school and I didn't even put it on my application. One tip that I've noticed is even in my own experience to try out a bunch of like sports that may not be as common. Like one of my like things that I put on my application was that I did trap shooting, and I think that also really helped me stand out among the rest of the applicants.
Yeah, I definitely think so as well. Trying out a lot of sports. I don't think I ended up putting sports on my application as either, but I know that like coaches can be a great person to write one of your recommendation letters, in addition to like a humanities and a STEM teacher, and we can cover that later. And then definitely like I know, yeah, unless if you are super involved, it's definitely great that colleges love to see that on your application, but otherwise, I wouldn't worry about it too much.
As for summer programs, you probably have heard of a ton of them, like, Yale Young Global Scholars, like TAS, RSI, everything like, and my biggest tip for summer programs is definitely to shoot for something that like is more selective rather than like a more like pay to get in sort of program. Like most summer sessions at a lot of schools, it's like several $1,000s you go and stay, but it doesn't really help you that much in the process because the admissions officers also know that it's not incredibly difficult to get into. Another tip that for me was you could also just create your own thing instead of doing a summer program. For me, one thing that I had on my application, me and a few of my friends from Scholastic Art Awards and Kenyon Young Writers Workshop, we formed a summer writing workshop that we hosted where we taught, creative writing like poetry, screenwriting, etc. And I think that's another thing that you could do to really stand out.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Hannah. Just looking into like researching a lot of summer programs, finding ones you're interested in. Obviously, if they have low acceptance rate, that's really impressive to put on your application. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. I didn't really do that many. I think I did two in my sophomore year, but for my junior year, I didn't do as many. I chose to focus more on other aspects of my application. So yeah.
As for research slash internships, I don't really have much to say on this topic because I didn't do any research or internships, but I think Alan definitely has more experience with this one.
Yeah, I can go ahead and share a little bit about my experience. So honestly, I think researching, it comes down to like trying to meet with people. Like if you have if your parents are professors, or if you have friends whose parents are professors, you have a way in there. And then also just I heard like cold emailing professors is another way that people have gotten in. Um, and then also other opportunities. So I know like Carmel High School, they had like a work-based learning program, which I joined, and that allowed me to do an internship with IPY. And then there also, like, my counseling office would like post updates every month or so, and they would just have like a list of internship opportunities available for high schoolers. So just like taking advantage of the opportunities that are out there definitely will help you.